Now, back to the president's victory lap yesterday, which started at the National Prayer Breakfast. Conservative writer and thought leader Arthur Brooks spoke right before the president about the teachings of Jesus Christ to love your enemies, a message the president said he doesn't agree with.
Ask God to give you the strength to do this hard thing, to go against your human nature, to follow Jesus' teaching. You believe Jesus' teaching, act like it. Me too. To love your enemies. Ask God to take political contempt from your heart. And sometimes when it's just too hard, ask God to help you fake it.
Arthur, I don't know if I agree with you. But I don't know if Arthur's going to like what I'm going to say. I don't like people who use their faith as justification for doing what they know is wrong. Nor do I like people who say, I pray for you, when they know that that's not so. We did a prayer breakfast this morning, and I thought that was really good. I had Nancy Pelosi sitting 4 seats away, and I'm saying things that a lot of people wouldn't have said, but I meant every word of it. They're vicious and mean. Vicious. These people are vicious. Adam Schiff is a vicious, horrible person. Nancy Pelosi is a horrible person. And she wanted to impeach a long time ago when she said, I pray for the president. I pray for the president. She doesn't pray. She may pray, but she prays for the opposite. But I doubt she prays at all. And these are vicious people.
You know, evangelicals, anybody that's grown up in a church, evangelical church, Catholic church, Christian church, understands the blasphemy there. They really do. You had Donald Trump, first of all, saying, I don't agree with you, Arthur. Well, it wasn't Arthur he was disagreeing with. It was the words of Jesus Christ he was disagreeing with. But this is a man, and, you know, Franklin Graham, you know this. This is a man that has said he's never had to ask Jesus Christ for forgiveness before. This is a man who never read the Bible his entire life. He handed me a Bible of his one time in the early fall of 2015 that his mother gave him. It's obvious it hadn't been open for 40 years. He talked about 2 Corinthians when somebody gave him a quote from 2 Corinthians. He couldn't name a single book in the Bible. He couldn't tell you the difference between the New and the Old Testament. And yesterday he mocked the words of Jesus Christ. Now listen, since Franklin Graham and Jerry Falwell Jr., Robert Jeffries, and all these other so-called religious leaders are not telling those of you who weren't raised in the church why it was so grotesque for people at the National Prayer Breakfast and in the White House to be laughing at Donald Trump mocking the words of Jesus Christ. Let a twice divorced, backslidden Baptist tell you. Let me read you the words that the President of the United States at a National Prayer Breakfast was mocking yesterday. And how sad, think about it, how sad, not a single evangelical leader came out yesterday and stood up for the words in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Taken from the Sermon on the Mount. These aren't footnotes from Nahum. Taken from the Sermon on the Mount, the centerpiece of the Gospels. Jesus said this, you have heard it said, love your friends and hate your enemies. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons and daughters of your Father in heaven. If you love only those who love you, what reward will you get? And do not even evil men do that? And if you greet only your brothers, only your friends, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that. Be perfect, therefore, as Arthur Brooks was saying yesterday, as your heavenly Father is perfect. It is the centerpiece, John Meacham. whether you were a believer or not. It is the centerpiece of the Gospels of Jesus Christ to love your enemies, to forgive those who have persecuted you, and to show mercy and kindness and meekness. That should be your goal. And yesterday, at something called the National Prayer Breakfast, Donald Trump mocked the words of Jesus Christ, and he got applause for it. I'm marking yesterday as a dark day, not only in the history of this country, but in the history of the modern evangelical movement, because I heard nobody that supported Donald Trump stand up for the words of Jesus Christ. And here I am, like I said, a guy who's been divorced twice, a guy who's a backslidden Baptist. I'm having to do this? Where are the religious leaders of the day to do this, or to talk about the Good Samaritan, or to talk about why it is unchristlike to put children in cages, or to talk about why it's unchristlike to reward the richest of the rich while hurting the poorest of the poor? Where are these men?